Welcome to the Movies to Watch Before You Die podcast. My name is Gab, and I am here with my cousin and co-host,
Dylan.
And today, we are here to talk to you about a movie that I believe is one to watch before you die. But Dylan, before we tell the people what they already know, why don't you tell them what they also already know, which is why they're listening to us?
Sort of a circular way of introducing this topic, but okay. You're listening to us because we are both somewhat experienced in the field, both having gotten a college education in the craft, me for video editing, you for the craft of acting. And we also, by this point, have like 40 something episodes of experience under our belt. So we're kind of experienced podcasters by this point, too.
Yeah, I mean, we're crushing it. The sponsorships are rolling through. Our bank accounts are robust. And, producers are knocking down our doors, begging us to talk about their movies. So today, we're going to satisfy a Marty Scorsese's request to talk about one of his best movies, I think, and that is the movie Shutter Island.
I'm now convinced that this is the only Martin Scorsese film you've ever seen.
No, I've seen Wolf of Wall Street.
Okay, so just the two.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I don't know. What other movies? What other
You want me to name more?
Yeah, but I know he did that I'm embarrassing myself. Just tell me.
Raging Bull, Taxi Driver.
Yeah, that's what
Goodfellas.
these two I was thinking of. The De Niro. Did he do what's the cowboy? I want to say Rhinestone Cowboy, but I know that's not what it's called. Midnight Cowboy.
I don't believe that's him. No.
Okay, but that's one of those like Hoffman, De Niro, right?
That's Dustin Hoffman and oh my God, I'm really mad at myself right now because I can picture his fucking face. Angelina Jolie's dad, John Voight.
Okay, thank you. See, I'm not a total moron. Anyway, no, I've never seen any of those.
Casino, The Departed.
No, but Corey loves The Departed. He talks about it all the time.
I feel like you have to say it with a Boston accent too. You gotta be like The Departed.
The Departed, yeah.
I'm not a cop. Okay. Where were we? Were we derailed?
I don't know. We're already off the rails.
So we're talking about
Shutter Island. I chose this movie. It is one that I actually had only seen once before I rewatched it for the podcast. And funny story, I don't remember where I saw it. And there was one of two places. The first possibility is that I watched it like on the couch with my parents or something. The second possibility is that I watched it in my AP psychology course in high school.
Interesting. I don't know if it's I don't necessarily know it's like psychologically accurate enough that it's worth showing in a psychology course, but it definitely touches on enough topics that might be worth exploring.
Yeah, I don't remember because I know I saw every second of it. And the chances of me as a teenager, because that movie came out in 2010, which is the year I graduated from high school. So I would have been a senior in that AP psychology course, but I don't think it would have been available on DVD. So maybe I watched it in college.
I did see this in the theater, I remember.
Did you?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I did too. I don't remember, but I know I've only ever seen it once and I loved it. So I was excited to revisit. What do we normally talk about now? Oh, why don't you tell the people what it's about?
What's this all been about? What am I working toward?
You think you know everything about me, don't you?
I dive at your bottom. I bloody well ought to.
The plot summary without spoilers. See if it's close to IMDb. The plot summary without spoilers. See if it's close to IMDb. Woo!
Yeah, you could have just started what's it about, but okay.
Yeah.
So I think the succinct version would be that Teddy Daniels, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, is investigating a missing patient at Ashcliff Asylum, which is located on Shutter Island. And it's basically about him and his partner Chuck arriving and trying to figure out how did this patient go missing and is there more to this asylum than there seems to be at first glance.
That's pretty good.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. Why don't you read the IMDb?
Teddy Daniels and Chuck All, two U.S. Marshals, are sent to an asylum on a remote island in order to investigate the disappearance of a patient, where Teddy uncovers a shocking truth about the place.
Love it.
Do you want to hit the taglines? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go with the taglines. I'm going to try to remember what I was about to say.
Okay. The first tagline, these are very mediocre taglines. Someone is missing.
Are you kidding?
That's the whole,
the
that was their
tagline.
first tagline. They were like, I imagine somebody in marketing spent an entire day like, gotta figure out, gotta think. Like, I imagine
God.
SpongeBob trying to start his essay and all he can get is like the guy was like, someone is missing. There it is.
Yep.
The second is some places never let you go.
That's pretty good.
You think?
Not really.
I'm
No,
so shocked
no.
to hear that. Yeah. Is it just
it's more
because
than
I
3
lowered the
words.
bar? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the better tagline would have been, "Where is the 67th patient?"
No, because that gives it away. So it should have been, who is number 67?
That's the exact same fucking thing.
I know, but it took a little while. Like it took a minute for Danny to realize that there were 66 patients.
Who's
so
Danny?
The question, what was his name? Teddy?
Teddy Daniels?
Damn it.
You mixed them together. Danny. Okay.
I'm thinking Denny from The Room. It took Teddy a while to put together that there were 66 patients and there was a 67th that she was talking about.
I guess I don't think that's like a spoiler though. Which
No,
we
but
will
it's a
get
nice
into
moment.
spoilers.
Sure, of course. But anyway, let me ask you this. Why does Leonardo DiCaprio have in many movies this Boston accent? Like where?
Well, his character is from Boston.
I know, but like how come?
I was going to bring something else up about that. Does he do enough of a Boston accent?
Listen, I'm not here to talk shit about Leo.
Am I asking him to do like a cartoonish Boston accent? Like, do I want it to be,
so.
Chuck, get the car keys. We gotta go. Pick me up a fucking coffee on the way. Let's get out of here.
Your cousin from Boston.
Like, I was just like, it's too subtle. Like, I'm not hearing him aggressively say like, where's the fucking donkeys on this island?
I just think like as an actor, accents like that can be so cartoonish and so over the top that like in order to make it realistic you kind of have to underplay it, but also at the same time an accent like that isn't underplayed, so it's like it's tough, like I always go back to the window, right? You don't want to put too much on the window that you can't see through it, but sometimes it's like if you're talking to somebody from Boston, it's alarmingly clear the entire time that they are from Boston,
Yeah, which I guess to speak to what you're saying, I do think he keeps it mostly subtle for the most part, which I guess makes it not distractingly Bostonian. It's only because I was thinking about him being from Boston. I was like, he doesn't sound super Bostonian. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mark Ruffalo, who played help me. Chuck, thank you. I wanted to say Chris and Danny, who played Chuck, is not from Boston, right? Because he didn't really have an accent.
No, he says that he is from Seattle.
Right. So he didn't really have anything crazy. Yeah, I just really felt like Leo raised his hand and was like, listen, I'm going to take this role. I'm excited. Can he be from Boston? Because I got a mean Boston accent I'd like to share.
Wait, you think it was his insistence that this character be from Boston? You don't think it was in the screenplay or the book?
I just think he really likes using a Boston accent, and I would just like to know why.
Maybe he was just coming off The Departed, and he was like, I can't stop doing a Boston accent. I can only tone it down a little bit.
Right.
That's what I feel like is happening.
Out.
You never watched Elvis, right?
No.
Well, I remember, Austin Butler was like big for the awards. He played Elvis, and you would see him on like awards junkets, and it was like, why are you still doing an Elvis impression, dude? What's happening here?
Oh my God.
And I feel like I'm like, is he just going to be stuck in Elvis for the rest of his life? Like he's going to be in Dune 2. And I'm like, is he going to be Elvis in Dune 2? Like, what's happening?
God. I mean, that shit is hard. You know what I mean? Like you really will get like stuck.
I feel like it's an auditory version of when your parents would say, stop making that face or it'll get stuck like that. Like they're like, stop doing that Elvis impression or your voice is going to get stuck like that. And it's like, oh, shucks. I guess now I can only talk like this.
Well, think about like you know, when you learn like a new word or a turn of phrase that you like, and then it like somehow, somewhere along the line, it just becomes a part of your vernacular. Like you're not consciously thinking, oh, I want to say this word, or like, oh, I want to use this phrase. It just starts to happen. And I think the same thing can happen with like accents and voices and dialects and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. It's like when an actor is not, an actor's not American and they're playing an American in a movie and you'll just hear like a bit of that accent slip out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That it's like, oh, they're actually from Australia and you hear it like in a certain word or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even like, I remember the first audition I ever went on was for a Nickelodeon TV show when I was a kid. And the casting director was like, okay, sweetheart, where are you from? And I said, Long Island. And they were like, you're going to have to like do something about that. So I started taking, like speech to lose that accent. So now it doesn't really sound like I'm from Long Island unless I'm like angry or, you know what I mean? Like it like will slip out occasionally, but like I don't have to think about not sounding like that anymore. It just happens naturally,
And unfortunately, that Nickelodeon show, they needed somebody very fucking Bostonian.
Yes.
I couldn't do it.
I couldn't pull it off. I was too busy being from Long Island.
It was all coffee, not coffee.
Right. I needed a coffee. And that was that.
Okay, so Gab, do you want to describe Shutter Island more, or should we not go so deep into that because I don't know how much we want to spoil anything?
Well, Dylan, this movie is 13 years old, so I don't know that I necessarily want to like completely avoid spoilers. I do think if you're on the podcast to listen to us talk about a movie, there's like, I'm not gonna like hold back in case you decide you want to go home and watch it. I do think that we can get into a little bit more of the basics just in case somebody that's listening hasn't seen the movie. I highly recommend that you do watch it. But I guess without going too far in depth, essentially, Teddy is a U.S. Marshal who is there with his partner Chuck to help locate a missing patient on the island. And the thing about this insane asylum is that for the time, which this is right after World War II, the patients are being treated like human beings and they're sort of being more rehabilitated rather than what had been happening to patients of that nature at the time, which was they were being like lobotomized and, kind of like tortured. So this doctor who runs the asylum is sort of spearheading this project of like, we're going to treat people with dignity and respect, even though these are some of the most dangerous killers of all time. So you've got people who have murdered people, you have people who have, done all sorts of terrible things. And instead of torturing them and treating them like prisoners, we're going to try to treat them with respect and rehabilitate them. So, Teddy, who is a World War II veteran, is pretty highly suspicious of these people because you see him have a lot of like flashbacks to the war, where he sees a lot of like Jewish people in the concentration camps who have been starved and murdered. And so he doesn't really take kindly to these people that are in this asylum because they have done bad things. I feel like I've gone on a little bit of a tangent, but that seems necessary information. You look confused.
I feel bad because I'm like, well, I want to correct you, and I feel like it's a dickish thing of me to do.
Oh, no, please do.
So the movie is set in 1954. What I would say is it's not everyone on the island is respectful and wants to treat patients with respect. They have 3 wards. Ward A and B is for the less violent, less prone to violence patients, I guess I'll call. That seems like the correct word. Ward C is for the most violent patients. And what they discuss at one point is that while Dr. Cawley, who runs the asylum, is very much part of the new school, and he is about treating the patient with respect, making them a better person through that, and hoping that you can eventually cure them, or if not cure them, to at least better their life and present them with some calm. Whereas there is somebody else who's on the board of overseers named Dr. Nyring, who is much more like, fuck it, let's lobotomize them. That'll keep them cool. And it's really about them. There's a subplot about the warring schools of psychology.
Yeah. How many times have you seen this movie?
This was the first time I'd watched it in several years. I know, like I said, that I saw it in theaters, and I know I'd probably watch it at least once or twice after that because I think I own the movie on DVD. If you don't own it on DVD, you can watch it on Paramount Plus.
Or you can rent it on Amazon for like $3, which I did. Interesting. Okay, because it seems like you know it a little bit better than me.
Well, I watched it. Did you not watch it?
I did watch it. I absolutely watched it. So as the plot unfolds, I really want to say Danny, Teddy, and Chuck are searching for the missing patient Rachel Solano. I remembered her name. And Rachel Solano disappeared. They have no idea where she is, but she has to be on the island because it's surrounded by water. There are storms rolling in. Why are you laughing?
She has to be on the island because it's surrounded by water. Yes, it is.
Okay, you explain it then. I'm done. I'm out of here.
You're looking for the patient Rachel Solano, who is somewhere on the island or has died trying to get off the island, they presume.
No, they said her body would have washed up. They would have found it. So try again, dumbass.
I have earned that. That was fair. And as things go on, Teddy is noticing weird eccentricities from the patients who are trying to either give him signals, or people are looking at him strange, or just weird things going on in the background. And eventually he starts to catch wind of a name that he feels a need to investigate, Andrew Latus. Latus, Teddy tells us, is the man who burned down the apartment building that they were living in and killed his wife. So it really becomes about Teddy looking for Rachel Solano, but also trying to find out if anybody knows about Andrew Latus, who is supposed to be also at Shutter Island, Ashcliff.
Yes. So the reason that Teddy took this case and decided to come is because it also presented him the opportunity to confront Andrew Latus.
Yes. I'm like, yes, yep. Do we stop
you
there?
Didn't say that.
Do we stop there in our explanation?
Listener, do you want to hear about how it ends, or do you want to not?
I feel
Show
like
of hands. Who wants to hear how it ends?
Let me look around the room. I don't see Scotty. Where's his hand?
One of my favorite lines, by the way, from Impractical Jokers is they had this scene where they had to give a speech and they had to basically just read what was ever on these like random cards. Mm-hmm. And Murr is giving this speech. It's like at some city hall event or whatever. And they make him flip the card and it says, show of hands. How old are you? Think about that all the time. By a show of hands, how old are you?
I really like that.
That's great.
Well,
why don't you want to spoil it?
Because I feel like this is a movie that is much better going into it unspoiled. Like, I was talking to Giselle about it yesterday, and she was telling me that she actually never finished this movie. She only saw the first half of it. And when I watched the movie, I was getting like giddy with excitement to be like, oh my God, I would love to watch this with her if she doesn't know how it ends. And then I was talking to her for like 30 seconds and she was like, but I know it ends this way. And I was like, fuck. Like, I was like, God damn it. So I was excited
to watch it with Corey because he had never seen it. And I remembered the plot twist, but I didn't quite remember how we got there.
And I think, well, I guess I'll get into more into our opinions, but I think it's a very different watch if you know the twist versus if you don't.
Yes. I think we should spoil the end. I think we need to talk about it. That's why we're here.
Okay. So then let me just one more time say spoiler, spoiler, spoiler. This is the spoiler warning, yada, yada, yada. Go watch it.
It's
we already named
so
places you can watch
good.
It.
Please watch it. Don't let this be how you find out what happens. It's too good.
Now tell them what happens, Gab.
Well, at the end of the movie, essentially, oh God, you make me feel so self-conscious about this now.
Do you want me to
I'm going to close my eyes.
You can correct me.
Yeah, because you're gonna be better about this.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. So in
last
Teddy's
compliment I'll ever give you.
Okay. So in Teddy's search for Rachel Solano, his search for Andrew Latus, his search for the 67th patient, he ends up making his way to the last spot left that could be on the island for anyone who is missing to be, which is the lighthouse, where he has also been told that they are doing brain surgery on people, doing transorbital lobotomies on people. And when he finally
By the way, side note,
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, this is very important. Have you seen the television show on TBS called Awake Surgery?
No.
It's where they do surgery on people while they're awake. And we've never seen it, but it's on like our little like TLC Go app for our Roku. And we've stopped referring to it as awake surgery and started referring to it as alive surgery. So I just want to make sure that we're being clear with people that in this lighthouse where they're performing surgery, it is indeed alive surgery.
It's a live surgery, but not an awake surgery. No, I think it would be alive and awake.
It would be awake. Anytime you do brain surgery, you have to be awake.
Ew.
Yeah. So anyway, it's alive and awake surgery.
Good to know. So as Teddy is going to find out about Andrew Latis, to find out about Rachel Solando, to find the 67th patient, to find out by this point his partner Chuck is missing, to find his missing partner in the lighthouse, what does he find? Nothing. What he finds is the leader of the asylum, Dr. Cawley, who tells him that the entirety of the ongoings for the previous, hour and 50 something minutes has been an experiment by the asylum to try and help Teddy see that he is not Teddy Daniels, but he is Andrew Latis, and he has had a dissociative break from reality after coming home to find that his wife had drowned their 3 children and that he in then turn had killed his wife because of this.
Yeah. So we've skipped over a couple of things like that maybe are not super important, that Rachel Solando, who he is looking for, who was supposedly the missing patient, was actually the name of his daughter. And he was looking for Rachel, who supposedly was also having like a dissociative mental break, who believed that she was still in her house in the Berkshires after she murdered her children. So there were some like relations between what Teddy did and his story, or rather Andrew Latis and his story, and what he thought he was there to do. So there were some like storylines that were intertwined, but for the most part, it turns out that he is a patient, and he is they're allowing him to go through this sort of reliving or pretending to be a marshal. What are you looking at, Sally?
I'm like, Sally has just jumped into the frame, and bye, Sally. Okay,
Bye,
Sally's
Sally.
gone now.
Sally, she looked like she was ready to jump in and say something. She did watch the movie too, but she's chosen not to speak. But anyway, he is a patient, and there is definitely a moment where you are like, is he truly a patient, or are they just like trying to convince him that he's a patient? Because there is a huge part of the movie where they talk about how if somebody says you are crazy, all of your arguments to the contrary only further prove their point. Like the harder you argue that you are sane, the more crazy you appear. So after you've watched about an hour and 50 minutes of Teddy Daniels trying to solve this mystery, to find out that he's Andrew Latis and he's crazy and he killed his wife and blah, 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 you're kind of like, could that be? But then the movie does a really nice job of proving to you that it is exactly the truth. And I think the best part of the movie comes at the end where Andrew Latis.
Saying the best part of the movie. Is it time to officially get into opinion time?
Yeah. It is. Sorry. My bad.
In this critic's opinion,
that's just like your opinion, man.
Well, I have a right to my opinion, and my opinion is you have no right to your opinion.
So the best part of the movie is at the end when Andrew Latis, so he does come back to reality. He does remember that he killed his wife. He does know that he is not Teddy Daniels. And they're all like, all right, we're going to hopefully you stay in reality this time, because they do mention that it has happened before where he's come back to reality and then gone right back into his delusion. And you see him sitting on the stoop. As it turns out, his partner Chuck is actually his doctor. So the doctor, played by
Mark Ruffalo.
Thank you. My mom loves him. After Mark Ruffalo comes down, sits with him, and he kind of starts to slip back into his delusion and becomes Teddy Daniels again. He says, so what's our next move? And, you can see the doctor kind of like trying to see if he's back to being Teddy Daniels. And it appears that he is. Quick,
they have said that by this point, Dr. Cawley says that either you're going to snap from the delusion realize you're Andrew Latus and realize what you did and come back to reality. Or if you do slide back, that they will have to proceed with the lobotomy, and it will have been proven that their experiment has failed, and that the more old school methodology of psychology will have won out.
Correct. And so as he begins to slip back into the delusion, you kind of see them signal to one another like, nah, it didn't work. And he says to Chuck, and I'm paraphrasing here, I guess the real question is it better to live as a killer or live as a monster or
You want me to
die?
just read the quote?
Yeah, please.
Which would be worse, to live as a monster or to die as a good man?
Yeah. And then he gets up and willingly walks toward his own lobotomy. And so it does give you that moment of like, well, is he still living in reality where he knows he's Andrew Latus and he just would rather be lobotomized than have to continue in this world in which he knows what happened to him?
I mean, in our opinion time, if we're going to go right into talking about the ending, do you feel one way or another about it?
Yeah, I mean, I felt very much like he was straight up telling us that he was sane. He just essentially wanted to be removed of his burden.
I think like 18-year-old Dylan in the theaters was just like, damn, it didn't work, and like totally didn't get like what was obviously being told to me. And yeah. I think for the most part, what I researched is Scorsese doesn't really like try and tip it one way or another, like in interviews, or DiCaprio wouldn't. But I think it is obvious that he is back into being Andrew Latus. He's no longer Teddy Daniels. He understands what he did. And I think that he just chooses, the lobotomy over having to live with what he had done.
Yeah, 100%. It's funny because 18-year-old Gab definitely thought that he wasn't crazy and that they had convinced him and like got like it like more like almost like it was more of a horror movie where this innocent guy had been convinced that he was this killer, which is crazy because then they literally show you exactly what happened.
Yes, they then give you the flashback that does show like very clearly what happens. Yeah.
Yeah. But what did I know? I did learn a new word from this movie. Would you like to know what that word is? Because I'm afraid to pronounce it.
No, I guess you're going to have to give it a shot.
You're going to have to tell me if I'm right or wrong.
Okay.
Macabre.
You didn't know the word macabre?
No.
Yeah.
Macabre was my second choice. That was my backup plan.
I've heard it said incorrectly that way as well.
Yeah. I figured the RE was silent. I'm glad to know that I was correct. Macabre. Like corn on macabre.
I was just thinking corn on macabre, and I was like, don't say it, don't. It's too stupid.
No, it's perfect. It works. Meaning particularly gruesome in relation to depicting death.
Can I talk about something that bothered me by the end of this movie?
Please.
Teddy Daniels, we end up finding out his full name is Edward Daniels. Is Teddy a nickname for Edward? Because I thought Teddy was a nickname for Theodore.
It is, yeah. It is, 100%.
So
Theodore,
why
Teddy?
So how did we get to Teddy Daniels?
Well, what's interesting? The nickname for William is Bill.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm saying is it's the fucking Wild West out here. You could be whatever you want.
Shouldn't Bill be the nickname for Billiam?
Right. Shouldn't Willie, Bill, Billie? How does that happen?
How is Jack a nickname for John? They're the same amount of letters.
Yeah.
These things don't matter. But it just upset me. It upset me when they said Edward Daniels. I was like, no, why isn't he Theodore Daniels?
Does Giselle ever call you Dill?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm a big fan of the one syllable.
Gab?
Yeah. But like I feel like I give people one syllables, although I'd never say core. I would never say that.
I don't like it.
No. It wouldn't work.
Corey is a short name. You don't need to.
Yeah. But I do like a single syllable. Anyway.
I did also write down the quote that you were talking about before about insanity, where Teddy at one point, what's another relation to Whiplash that we didn't talk about with this movie, actually?
Please.
these are both movies that are told entirely from one character's perspective.
Yes.
That movie was entirely from Neiman's perspective. You don't have a scene without him. This movie is entirely from Andrew/Teddy's perspective. He is in every single scene, and I never thought about it before as much as I did now, how unreliable everything is if it's just him and one other person in the scene.
Yeah.
He's in the cave with Rachel Solando, the real Rachel Solando, who tells him the quote that you were talking about: once you're declared insane, anything you do is called part of that insanity. Reasonable protests are denials, valid fears are paranoia, survival instincts are defense mechanisms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Also, the real Rachel Solando, the mom from Easy A.
Emily Mortimer.
Yeah, great.
I didn't realize how much she is in this, because for a time period she's in a lot of those like flashbacks and dream sequences. I was like, oh, she did more work in this than showing up for that one scene.
Rachel Solando?
Yeah. In the camps at one point he sees her laying on the ground in
Oh yeah.
in one of Teddy's dream sequences. It's Rachel Solando as, covered in the blood of the child.
Yeah, yeah. Right, because in the original story, Rachel Solando did what actually his wife did. Also, we should talk about Carey Mulligan as his wife.
No, we cannot, because that is not Carey Mulligan.
Wait, hold on. It is not Carey Mulligan. It's Michelle Williams.
Yes, it is.
Carey Mulligan was in the other Leonardo DiCaprio movie we've talked about.
She was? Which one?
Hold on. Sally is desperate to get out of this room right now. And I'm wrong. Michelle Williams was also Daisy in The Great Gatsby. It was Michelle Williams in both of them. And I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to call it right now. Corey said Carey Mulligan, and I thought to myself, oh yeah, obviously that's not Michelle Williams. Because when the movie first started, I said to him, it's Daisy. And he was like, oh yeah. And then a couple minutes later, he was like, Carey Mulligan. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I'm an idiot.
Wait, it is Carey Mulligan in The Great Gatsby.
Dylan, one of you is going to die.
Okay, well, you're not in the room with me, so you can't do shit about it. But that is Carey Mulligan in The Great Gatsby.
Okay, and it's Michelle Williams here.
Correct.
Yes, so I was wrong. I said it's Daisy, and then he said Carey Mulligan, and then I thought to myself, stupid, I'm wrong. And I was wrong. It's Michelle Williams in The Great Gatsby, and it's Carey Mulligan here. Or backwards.
Nope, you just reversed that.
I'm going to let the cat out. I'll be back.
While you do that, I'm just going to point out that I think Michelle Williams in this role looks so much like the waitress from It's Always Sunny. And I know that Gab does not watch It's Always Sunny. And I'm basically just rambling now while I wait for her to come back. But you, the listener, I want you to, if you watch It's Always Sunny, tell me, does that character totally look like the waitress from It's Always Sunny? Just saying.
Anyway. Yeah, so she plays his wife. I'm still not positive which of the two it is, but she plays his wife, and she comes to him in a lot of visions regarding finding Andrew Laeddis.
Yes. We have several dream sequences with his wife. We have what I guess is a dream sequence with another version of Andrew Laeddis. There's a couple of actors who really are in this movie for one scene and just knock it out of the park in the one scene they're in. Patricia Clarkson, who shows up as the quote unquote real Rachel Solando.
Yep.
Ted Levine, who shows up as the warden, who is literally in one scene where he has a conversation with Teddy, and he is, you would know him as Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs, and he was on Monk for years, but he's just really good and really creepy in that role, because he makes you, if you don't know the twist, you're thinking, why is this guy so fucking weird? And if you know the twist, you're thinking, well, this guy knows this guy's a freak, and he's like, all right, let's get you back crazy.
Yeah. It's so good. And that's the thing, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that's the thing about all of these performances, is that when you watch it a second time and you know the twist, you can see the subtle behaviors that show you throughout the movie that they know he's crazy.
Yes, it's a movie that rewards you for watching it twice because there's so many times and so many interactions where it's like, well, why did the character look over there then? Oh, they looked over there because on the second time, you know that they're looking to this person who they know is really this person. Or why are they reacting to the name Andrew Latis? Because they know that the marshal they're talking to, Teddy, isn't Teddy, but he's Andrew Latis.
It's
and
so great.
There's a lot of moments like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Other actors who show up for one scene and are really good. Jackie Earle Haley as George Noyce, who like is just really, really good at. That's another scene that, again, if you don't know the twist, is completely different than once you do.
Yeah.
I feel like there's one other person that I was trying to think of, and I can't remember who it was that showed up for one scene and was really good. Oh well.
Yeah.
I guess they weren't that
It was
good.
great. Yeah. Clearly not that memorable. But it really is a movie that rewards a second watch. And I think, again, you know, the anybody who walked in off the street and was told to play a role where this guy is talking to you, but you know he's crazy, is gonna just over deliver the shit out of it. And you can really watch this movie the first time and have no idea that Teddy Daniels is actually Andrew Latis and he's a patient here and he's crazy. And even, I mean, you know, obviously we got to talk about Leo, who does a phenomenal job and just all really play it both ways where you don't know until you know, you know?
Yes, and I think it's not just Leo that does that, but it's really everybody. Even like the background extras, like the guards, you'll notice them upon second viewing. They're supposed to be searching for Rachel Solando and instead they're doing nothing. Or when they first get to the island and all the guards are so on edge, and Ted even points it out that like everybody's on edge. And they're on edge because there is a violent patient who is just sort of unrestrained right now and just sort of able to do whatever he feels like. So they're all sort of staying close to their guns.
Yeah. And even like when they put them in their rooms and they're like given their, you know, they have their guns taken off of them, right? Like obviously they're not real guns, but like they want to make sure that he doesn't realize it's not a real gun. Like they've set this whole thing up in a very elaborate way to make sure that there's very limited damage that could be done, but also keeping it seeming like it could, be real for Andrew Latis. And it's just so brilliantly done. And it is such a mind-blowing twist the first time you watch it. But the second time you watch it, it's like you just get so much more out of it.
Yes, I agree with that fully. And I think what's interesting is watching again, I wrote down so many quotes because there's so many quotes that I either think are poignant to the subject matter of psychology and on letting go and what that means and things like that. And there's also just a lot of quotes that I think are really good in general. There's one quote that I didn't write it down. It's just like a very short sentence, but I remember seeing it in the movie theater as a kid and laughing at it, like laughing out loud in the theater. And now as an adult, I'm like, you were probably just being a dick. But like me and all my friends, I remember laughing at. Again, it's that scene where he's in the cave talking to the real Rachel Solando and he goes, what about my friends? Which I don't know why he says that because the only person he's really talking about is Chuck. But he goes, what about my friends? And his vision of Rachel Solando looks at him and goes, Marshall, you have no friends. And I don't know why 18-year-old me in the theater was like, what a loser. Like, it was
oh my
so
God, you
me.
idiot.
Just
That's
the way that
so
she goes,
funny.
you have no friends. Like, instead of seeing it as like, there's enemies all around you and you got to be careful. Instead, I was just like,
you can't trust anyone, right?
Yes, instead I was just like, you're a loser.
It was just a burn.
Yes, I was like, sick.
As Corey would say, Teddy Daniels was catching strays.
Yes, I was like, damn, this woman hit him for no reason.
Damn. Okay, go ahead. What other quotes do you have?
Oh, well, if I go back to the beginning, it's too many quotes. It's a hospital for people our society normally considers beyond treatment. But I like Dr. Cawley saying, we greet them, try to heal, try to cure, and if that fails, at least provide them with a measure of comfort in their lives, calm, which obviously applies totally to Teddy. And there's so many things that Dr. Cawley in particular is saying that it's like, well, he is talking about you. Like, he is talking about you right now, sir. Sanity's not a choice, Marshall. You can't just choose to get over it.
Yeah.
I should have written down what Dr. Nyring says because once you know it, it makes so much more sense when he's talking about his defense mechanisms. Do you know the state of the mental health field these days, gentlemen? It's war. The old school believes in surgical intervention, psychosurgery, procedures like the transorbital lobotomy. Some say the patients become reasonable and docile. The new school, psychopharmacology. A new drug has just been approved called Thorazine, which relaxes the psychotic patient. You could say tames them. Which school are you, doctor? Me, I have this radical idea that if you treat a patient with respect, listen to him, try and understand, you just might reach him. Which that is basically like, he summed up the entirety of the movie in that quote. That is what this movie is about.
Yep. Yeah. Go ahead.
There's something that George Noyce says where I gotta scroll to it.
Let's contextualize this. George Noyce is somebody that Teddy Daniels claims to know.
Yes, according to Teddy Daniels, George Noyce is somebody that he met outside of the asylum who had once been in here and told him about them doing experiments in there, experiments on, people who didn't deserve it, trying to make spies with no memories who would do whatever they wanted them to do. In the world of Andrew Laeddis, the real world, the world of reality, George Noyce is a paranoid schizophrenic who I guess happened to be nearby Laeddis in the cells, and they would talk. And I guess that because he called him Laeddis, not Teddy, beat him up.
Mm-hmm.
But Andrew Laeddis says something about, you're a rat in a maze. This is all game. This is all for you. But he also says something about you have to let her go. I got to find it. I'm mad at myself that I can't find it. Okay, you can't dig out the truth and kill Laeddis at the same time. You want to uncover the truth, you got to let her go. Which again is very much like, once you know it, that is what this movie is about. It is, can he, in reality, kill Teddy Daniels, accept Andrew Laeddis, and let go of what he did?
Yeah, right.
And this was something that I never noticed before, but Mrs. Kearns, who is one of the patients that they interview at one point, there's another time where there's just a group session that is coming out, and Mrs. Kearns is looking at Teddy and just says, I don't remember what I'm supposed to remember, because obviously they've been coached to be like, you guys are only supposed to say this to him. But I just had never noticed that line in the background before, and with the subtitles on, it points out her saying that. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Do you want to just keep going with quotes? Because I got more quotes.
Yeah, please.
Okay, this one's a quote from Dr. Nyring, who is the more old school version of psychology, more about the lobotomy, more about he's willing to chain the prisoners down and let them drown if the place floods.
Mm-hmm.
Treats them less like people, I guess. Did you know that the word trauma comes from the Greek word for wound? What is the German word for dream? Traum. Ein Traum. Wounds can create monsters, and you are wounded, Marshall, and wouldn't you agree, when you see a monster, you must stop it?
Yeah.
Which again, once you know things, it's just like, it's telling you very obviously what he thinks.
Yeah. Yeah. There's also a moment in the movie where Teddy Daniels, pre-understanding that he is Andrew Laeddis, recognizes that this doctor, who's more like old school, chain him down, lobotomize him, whatever, is German, and kind of pieces together that he was probably working for the Nazis when they were doing human experiments. And so that feels like a really big twist, because it kind of gives Teddy Daniels some credibility when he suspects that they're doing things to people in here.
It's something that Teddy points out, and you're right. It gives credibility to the Teddy version, which is, this is an evil facility. I do think, if you're, again, knowing the twist, I think that he is probably, maybe he was involved in that, but I don't believe so. I do think he's probably just a German immigrant in the psychiatry field.
Yeah.
It does also make me think, though, does Teddy just have that keen an ear? Because he also, Chuck keeps saying he's from Seattle, and several times he goes, how's it in Oregon, or how's it in Portland? Maybe it's not several, maybe it's like 2 or 3, maybe it's twice.
Yeah.
But it's just an odd thing that I'm like, well, what's the purpose of that? Is it just showing us that he has a good ear for accents or voices or whatever?
Right. This just came to me off the top of my head, and this may be obvious and maybe I'm crazy, but Are we positive that Andrew Latis truly served in the war? Like, do we think that has some aid in his sort of like mental downfall, or is it possible that he didn't serve in the war at all?
I do believe that he 100% did, because I think Dr. Cawley says that to us at one point. He goes, "You did serve, and you were at the what's the word I'm looking for here?
Concentration camp?
Yes, it's there was a specific word I was looking for, but whatever. You were at Dachau when it was liberated. You were at the liberation. We don't know if you killed anybody though. Like, that's something specifically he says. I do think that he definitely was there, and I think that's part of the atrocities that he is dissociating from. Because we see, even when we see him as Andrew Latis in the flashback, before he has seen his wife, before he has seen his dead children, he already clearly is a troubled person. He comes home, and what's the very first thing he does before he actually finds anybody? He goes and gets a drink immediately, because he is just trying to bury his trauma, his wound. I do think also his dream sequences are really interesting.
Yeah,
agreed. And I love the way that they're shot too. Like, they are always shot in like, whoa, what the fuck is happening type of way.
Yeah.
Again, I think that there's an interesting thing of, there's also these visions that I guess that he has, these hallucinations, which are not the same as his dreams, that are shot in a much more regular way. And I guess that's why you're supposed to be able to think that they could be real. Like the hallucination he has of Andrew Latis, and the hallucination he has of the real Rachel Solando, which are shot more like, this is supposed to be real, but it's just weird. But I was just like taking note of the dream sequences and what's happening in them. Like, he's being told he's running out of time. He sees Rachel and the three children, and the smoke from his cigarette is going backwards for his shot.
Yes, I loved that shot where the smoke from the cigarette is going backwards.
I thought it was really cool. Like, everything in that scene, it's like there's so much coverage, because it's like we're cutting to a different shot every couple seconds. We're showing you some wild shit. He picks this little girl up, and she says, "I'm dead. Why didn't you save me?" And we got this view from her point of view, looking up at him, and he's got to be on like a dolly of some kind. Like, he's on a moving platform of some kind, because it's moving in this unnaturally smooth way, and it feels dreamlike and just weird, and it's like out there, that like, what the fuck is happening? I just always thought that was really cool. And then at one point you see him, I think it's, you see like a snippet of him with Rachel, not with his wife, at the lake, and he's walking backwards away from the lake, but then in the next shot he's going forwards and putting the children in the lake, and it's like, it is clearly just meant to be very disorienting, and it works very well. And once you know, again, how the movie ends, it makes sense why he's at the lake, why he, is trying to back away from it, but why he's also got the child, and the child is in the lake. And it's just very cool. And I think I wrote it down for both of his dream sequences, but I loved those dream sequences. And, I guess I remember the other actor I was going to point out, the fake Andrew Latis, who was played by Elias Codius, who I think is just so cool for that one scene he's in where it's like, what the fuck is this guy? Like, he does not make sense as a person at all, and everything that is happening with him is like, is he about to attack him? Is he actually just being friendly, acting like they're cool? When you don't know what is happening there, it is such a scene of, I don't want to say confusion, but of tension, because you're like, what is about to happen with this guy?
Yeah, and it kind of goes nowhere.
It doesn't go anywhere, because we never see his fake Andrew Latis again, even though he's looking for him. And I think it very abruptly cuts away to him having another vision of Rachel.
Yes.
But I was trying to look up. I was like, is there a reason?
No, not Rachel, his wife.
Oh, yes. A hallucination of Dolores, who is his wife.
Dolores. Yeah.
Which just makes me think of Seinfeld, but with the rhyming names. But
yeah.
I kept trying to figure out, is there a reason that Andrew Latis has like a giant scar from his temple to his lip, or like is so freaky deaky looking? And it was like, no, I guess that's just what Teddy is supposed to come up with.
Yeah, that's just how he has envisioned him. I think there's another thing that we're missing, which is a moment where, oh man, I believe the Andrew Latis, like the real one, like Teddy Daniels in reality, mentions that his wife murdered the children because she like desperately needed help and he did not get it for her. So it was his fault, really.
Yes, he blames himself not just for, killing his wife, but he blames himself for his wife killing their children because he knew that she needed help. He knew that she wasn't well, and he ignored it. He poured himself into his work. He had disengaged and was just going to work more. He was just going to drink and just stay away from the problem, basically, and pretend that everything was fine.
Yeah. And I think he, if I'm not mistaken, he admits to like not really spending a lot of time with his kids and like just kind of being gone all the time and like leaving them with her was just as guilt, like, consuming him with guilt as not getting her any help.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't think that's like true in the sense of like, would he be as criminally guilty? No, but I get from an emotional standpoint why he puts that guilt on himself and why, I mean, if you think of these major traumas that this man is dealing with, the death of his children, murdering his wife, and having liberated a concentration camp, yeah, no wonder he's like totally willing to just pull away from that entirely and forget all of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But,
oh my God, I was going to say something else about it and now I have forgotten. So go ahead.
Well, just real quick, it's another interesting thing he points out when he's talking about, I guess he's talking to Rachel, the real Rachel in the cave, and Rachel is saying something about that they want to remove a man's memories and make him into the perfect soldier, willing to do whatever. And I think that it's Teddy who says something like, you could never remove all of a man's memories, which again is just another line that I'm like, fuck, like, not as the kids say, I'm like, that slaps, like, oh my God, that makes so much more sense now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, God, it's just a great twist. If I'm going to be negative, I'm going to be like, there is definitely a moment. I think I was watching the movie and I was like, boy, we got to be near the end. And I paused it and I was like, there's an hour left. It's like, okay.
That's one thing I would like to say. It felt very long. And I think there's not a lot of fat to trim on this movie, really. But I would say if there's one portion that really goes on for maybe longer than it needs to, it's the flashback that tells us exactly what happened. It feels like there were moments of that flashback that probably could have been tightened up, moments that probably could have been explained verbally as opposed to like really showing us, to give it a little bit more like of a shorter running time. But it's Martin Scorsese.
I do think that there are things you could cut. Like if I'm editing this movie down, I'm not cutting out any of the flashback because I think the flashback is like so crucial to really hammering in like the trauma of the event and like why it is so brutal. I do think though it's, do we need the scene with the warden? Probably not. Do we need there's a lot of things that are repetitively instilling in us Teddy's point of view. You know what I mean? And it's like, well, if I get rid of that George Noyce scene entirely, if I get rid of Ward C entirely, does it completely alter the movie? I don't think so.
No, I would agree with you there.
Again, is any of it bad? No. But it's probably a little long.
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely a little long. But I don't know. I like it.
I'm not disputing any. I'm not saying any of it that I like totally dislike. But I'm like, well, yeah, some of it's probably unnecessary.
Yeah.
I think that addresses all the notes that I think are worth addressing for me.
Cool. Yeah. Same. I think for me it's just really about how incredible the acting is and how so many intricacies of the performance are delivered, but that unless you really know what's happening, you will not notice. And it almost makes you feel like upon first watch, you are Teddy Daniels. And upon second watch, you're Andrew Laeddis.
I guess so. I guess it's like on the first watch, I guess so. I feel like it feels weird to phrase it that way, but yeah.
Yeah, but
I
you
guess
know
that
what I mean.
totally
Like,
does work, where it's in the first watch, you're not seeing the reality, and in the second watch, you are seeing the reality. Yeah.
yeah.
No, that works. It works. You're
Well,
right.
thank you.
You're right.
Thank you. All right. Well, this has been Movie Special for You Die, and see you later.
So, can we get to some facts now?
Please, let's get to the facts.
Face the facts, dokes.
Facts have no place with an organized religion.
Let's go to our ratings first. IMDb gives this an 8.2 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes, the tomato meter is a 69%, an average rating of 6.7 out of 10, 181 fresh reviews, and 83 rotten. The audience score is 77% with an average score of 3.8 out of 5. The movie had a budget of $80 million and a gross of $295 million worldwide.
Wow.
Which I believe at the time was Scorsese's first or second highest grossing film. It was directed by Martin Scorsese, who, as we already said, directed Taxi Driver, Raging Bull, Goodfellas, a whole bunch of other stuff that you probably know.
Wolf of Wall Street.
Wolf of Wall Street. It was written by... That can't be right, Dylan. That's got to be... Oh, no, it auto-corrected to something that's not right. And I don't know the screenwriter well enough. So I'm just going to, real quick, just act like I'm talking totally normally and just real quick get
Well,
to
what
the
did it
thing.
autocorrect to?
Late? That's Leda. Leda Calligridis is the correct name.
Got it.
Who also wrote Alita, Battle Angel, Terminator Genesis, and Alexander. It's based on the novel by Dennis Lehane, who also wrote 3 episodes of the show The Wire, Gone Baby Gone, and Mystic River.
You ever watch The Wire?
I did. It's fine. It's good.
Okay, I've never seen it.
I get the hype. Do I think it's the best show ever? No, but it's cool. It's a cool show.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
The music, which I thought was great. Like, I was going to point out the score, like the scene where he's holding Michelle Williams, where he's holding his wife and she just fades away in his arms. It nearly, like, I could cry at that scene because the music, the strings, it's so fucking good and it's so, like, painful sounding.
Yes.
And then I found out there's no score. There's no original score for this movie. This is an ensemble of previously recorded music. It was collected by Robbie Robertson, who was a friend of Scorsese's and a composer. He was a composer on the film The Irishman, and he was the guitarist and songwriter for The Band. Do you know The Band?
No.
They were
The
a band?
Band?
Yes, they're literally called The Band from the 60s and 70s. They made the song The Wait, which that you would know. If I started playing it right now, you would know the song The Wait.
Okay.
But he's also the composer of Scorsese's newest film coming out, Killers of the Flower Moon. And I just thought that was kind of cool that it's like, oh, this is just a collection of previously recorded music. Okay.
Crazy.
I would
Lazy,
not know
dare I say.
it. Crazy and lazy. The movie stars Leonardo DiCaprio as Teddy Daniels / Andrew Latis, who you may know from The Revenant, Titanic, What's Eating Gilbert Grape, and Critters. Mark Ruffalo as Chuck, who you may know as Bruce Banner, the Hulk in the MCU, or from Spotlight. Ben Kingsley
And 13 going on 30.
And 13 going on 30, sure.
Which my mom loves. My mom doesn't know
Really?
Mark Ruffalo from anything other than him playing the guy in 13 going on 30. And she thinks that he just is that guy and she loves him.
I can only now think of him as either the Hulk or as the character from Spotlight going, "It's time!" And he's like super heavily talking out the side of his mouth when he screams, "It's time."
I recently told Corey about Uncle Ronnie, who is a side talker.
Yes, that's what Mark Ruffalo would play our Uncle Ronnie in the movie.
Yeah, he would. Also, side note, when Corey worked for Brunello Cucinelli, Leonardo DiCaprio would come in all the time. He said he's very broy, and very tall. And Mark Ruffalo apparently is a small man.
Okay, good to know. I also
just for
I
your
do get the
knowledge.
vibe that Leonardo DiCaprio outside of movies seems like a dick.
No, I've heard he's real. I mean, you know, from Corey, he's really, really nice. He's just like a bro. Like, he's like, yo, what's up, man? Like,
That feels weird too.
very
Does he do it with a
broy,
Boston
yeah.
accent at least?
Not that I've heard.
Ben Kingsley is Dr. Cawley, who you would know from, which he definitely wouldn't do now, but he won an Oscar for playing Gandhi, Schindler's List, or Iron Man 3. Michelle Williams as Dolores, who you may know from The Fablemans, Venom, or The Greatest Showman. And just because I want to point out the movie, Elias Koteas as the personification of Andrew Latis, who you may know as Casey Jones from the 90s Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. Which
Is
I
he
got
credited as the personification?
That's a good
of?
question. What is he credited as? I think I just read that he's the personification of him. No, he's just credited as Latis.
Interesting. Okay.
Elias Codius, who has also been called by people around my family the ugly version of Christopher Maloney.
That is true. I 100%.
It seems very cold because he's not an ugly man when you see him without
Well,
the giant scar on his face. But yes,
yeah, but
he is not as attractive as Christopher Maloney.
who is?
Very few of us. Very few.
Yeah, it's true.
Critics' consensus: it may not rank with Scorsese's very best work, but Shutter Island's gleefully unapologetic genre thrills represent the director at his most unrestrained. Roger Ebert from the Chicago Sun-Times gave it 3.5 stars. The film's primary effect is on the senses. Everything is brought together into a disturbing foreshadow of dreadful secrets. Andrew Pulver from The Guardian: I'm of the opinion that DiCaprio is still far too lightweight a performer to carry the grizzled, haunted character that Scorsese is asking him to portray.
That's shocking, but okay.
He goes on to write, his Boston accent ain't thick enough. No. Rick Green from Globe and Mail: sorry, but the late reward hardly justifies all that punishment. Which feels very harsh for this movie that way. You're like, yeah, it's long, but what a twist. And he's like, nah.
I mean, it's like not that long. I mean, Titanic is way longer.
I do also think that we've just been adjusted that every movie that comes out now feels like it's 2.5 hours. So this
It's
movie
so true.
this movie's 2 hours and 17 minutes. So I should be like, what a breeze.
Yeah.
Mick LaSalle from the San Francisco Chronicle, last one: if Martin Scorsese weren't aware of himself as a great filmmaker, he could never have made a movie as bad as Shutter Island.
That's so crazy to me.
There were some harsh fucking reviews. I was like, what the fuck?
It's
Okay.
a great whatever.
Some fun facts: the title Shutter Island is an anagram of truths and lies. It's also an anagram of truths denials.
On purpose?
I would assume so, yes.
Wow.
There's also the anagrams in the movies where Teddy Daniels is an anagram of Andrew Laeddis, and Rachel Solando is an anagram of his wife's real name, Dolores Chanel.
Right.
Through most of the storyline, it is cloudy, and the rain turns heavier as the story gets deeper. The sun only comes out in the final scenes, another reference to Freud, who described the subconscious as a confusing cloudy weather in opposition to the clear skies of the consciousness. The only movie of the partnership between Scorsese and DiCaprio that failed to receive any Oscar nominations.
Wow.
The whispered line in Ward C, "Stop me before I kill more," is likely a reference to William Hirons, a serial killer in Chicago in the 40s who famously scrawled, "For heaven's sake, catch me before I kill more. I cannot control myself," on one of his victims' walls in lipstick, earning him the nickname the Lipstick Killer. Are you laughing at that? That's some crazy ass shit. You're like, the Lipstick Killer.
Well, it's just like, if you're going to go down as a killer, wouldn't you want to be known as like the axe murderer or like the knife thrower, the lipstick murderer? You know what I mean?
I guess
Sounds
it's not
soft.
the most intimidating nickname of serial killers.
Yeah.
The cast includes 2 Academy Award winners, Ben Kingsley and Leonardo DiCaprio, and 5 Academy Award nominees: Max von Sydow, Michelle Williams, Mark Ruffalo, Jackie Earle Haley, and Patricia Clarkson. The film was intended to be released in October of 2009, but was postponed because Paramount Pictures' remaining yearly marketing and Oscars campaign budget could only afford for its other 2 releases, Up in the Air and The Lovely Bones.
Stanley Tucci and The Lovely Bones was robbed, by the way. He should have.
I feel like they chose poorly because I think Up in the Air did win an Academy Award for...
Yeah, it did.
Did Anna Kendrick, I guess, win an Academy Award for that?
I don't know.
Is she an Academy Award winner?
I don't know.
I'm not sure, so my voice is getting higher. But I think if Shutter Island had come out then and they had shifted one of those 2 movies, I think Shutter Island probably could have won more.
Agreed.
Leonardo DiCaprio's character has so polarized his 2 personalities that for the first part of the movie, Teddy never strikes a match to light his own cigarettes. This is no doubt because he associates matches with arson and the elusive Andrew Laeddis. However, as Ashcliffe's treatment begins to merge his personalities, he begins striking his own matches, particularly once he traverses cell block C. Scorsese would have screenings for the actors, set designers, and everyone involved in the movie of other movies to call out to specific people parts he wanted them to pay attention to. He would have them watch Vertigo, Out of the Past, and several documentaries about mental health to describe scenes and looks that he wanted to the cinematographers and set designers.
Love that.
Teddy isn't seasick in the beginning of the movie, but he's throwing up from withdrawal from his medicine.
Yep, they go on to say that.
I also just saw a video where it was describing that it's weird that we accept that Chuck and Teddy are meeting for the very first time on that boat, even though there's no reason they would just be meeting on the boat when they're almost there at the island.
Yeah, that's true, actually. But I mean, you have to assume that he's been throwing up the whole time, that like he
He's
hasn't
been
come
throwing up
out.
for days.
Yeah.
They have been on that boat for a week.
No, they were only on the boat for a few hours, no?
Wherever they were going from, it would not have been that long a boat ride, but it's just weird that like they're about to be at the island and we're like, of course they're just meeting for the first time. It's just a movie shortcut that we don't question.
Right. Yeah.
It's
that
like when
makes sense.
characters start a conversation and then it cuts to like another location and they're just finishing that conversation or like that next
Right.
line. And it's like, realistically, they didn't pause what they were saying.
Right.
Final thing I got here, Teddy Daniels' final line to Chuck All, which would be worse to live as a monster or die as a good man, is not in Dennis Lehane's book and inspired an article in The Guardian over what this movie's ending really meant. While DiCaprio and Scorsese did not answer, a psychiatric advisor, Dr. James Gilligan, said that Daniels did choose his fate and chose it as Andrew Latus. Dr. Gilligan said that Daniels' guilt over his past actions, especially his role in causing his wife to lose her mind and murder of their children before he killed her, led him to commit a form of suicide by giving the Shutter Island staff the green light to fully lobotomize him. Dr. Gilligan also said that this movie's treatments of Daniels succeeded because he did face his delusions, but failed in that his apparently fake retained psychosis gave the pro-lobotomy individuals a win in the debate over their methods versus the new non-surgical treatments.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. 100%.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Leonardo DiCaprio won his first Academy Award for that bear movie.
The Revenant.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Obviously, we gave him that Academy Award because we were sorry we didn't give him one earlier.
You're saying we, like you and I did it.
Yeah, we here at the podcast. Now, I don't think that movie was like great. Now, I haven't seen it in a very long time. I saw it in the movie theaters and I was very unimpressed, and maybe an older me would enjoy it more. But I don't think he really deserved it for that movie. I think that was just like that was a makeup, right?
Yeah.
What movie do you think he deserved it for?
It's a good question. I feel like the answer is probably The Aviator.
Good choice.
I also like The Departed a lot, though. So I could just as easily have been okay with that.
Yeah.
Even this movie, I think he's really fucking good in it.
I think he's insanely excellent in this movie.
Newsflash, Leonardo DiCaprio, pretty good actor.
Such a good actor. And I just feel like we haven't given him his flowers.
Oh,
we just haven't.
No, I think by this point, he's been given more than enough flowers, because I think once we got to The Revenant, everybody was like, he's got to win an Oscar. How can he have not won an Oscar yet? And it's like, yes, we all know. And he got it. It's good.
He and Kate Winslet. You think it's ever going to happen?
No.
But they both want it to happen.
I don't think he does. I think Leonardo DiCaprio's dating history is a whole big to-do, and it's like Kate Winslet, to him, I think is like his grandma. Apparently.
Yeah, but I think he's just trying to bury his depression.
Do you know more about Leonardo DiCaprio than I do?
Yeah.
Is Leonardo DiCaprio the real Teddy Daniels?
No, he's the real Kate Winslet's meant to be husband. But anyway, I digress. Listener, if you agree with me, let me know. If you don't agree with me, shut up.
I do also think one more thing I'm going to put in the description. There was a really cool video that pointed out there's actually a few times where there is CGI in this movie and you would have no idea that it's there.
There were a couple of green screens that were rough, though.
In this movie?
Yeah.
Really? Because I was thinking, I saw like a behind the scenes thing when I was looking through stuff afterwards, and I thought to myself, I was never thinking about that at all.
Two scenes in particular stood out to me. One of them is when he is on the rocks with Chuck, and the like background of like all the storm and the waves and everything, you can really tell. And the other one is when he's in the car with the warden.
That's so funny. Maybe in the car with the warden, I feel like I did notice it a little bit there because there's not as much going on. In the exact scene you're talking about with Chuck on the cliff,
Mm-hmm.
I was never thinking about that. And that's literally a portion of what they show in like the video. And I was like, what? That was CGI? Because I guess I was in the scene enough that I wasn't examining like that. But damn, you called that shit easy.
Yeah, sorry.
But you'll have to watch the link too, Gab, because I think there's a couple things that you'll be like, that was CGI? My goodness.
Yeah, I'd like to.
You know what's not CGI though, Gab? Our mail. And let's get to some mail right now.
I have nothing to say. Let's get to the mail.
Mail time!
When you control the mail, you control information.
Mom asked me to ask you if there's any mail for us here by mistake.
What?
And yet you continue to say things. So we're going to address some prior mail that we've got here. And we actually have a surprising amount of comments. Some of which are even not from Scotty Cameron.
Whoa, Scotty Commentrin.
Scotty Comrade.
Yeah, sorry, I tried.
Let me see here. So we have a comment on That Thing You Do.
Oh shit.
So somebody is going back and rewatching these, I guess. I don't know who the commenter is. I don't have like a name, but it says, I was listening and was thinking, did they say the intro to the movie? And then Gab said it. Good podcast. Keep it up. I'm hooked. Which is just, it's so nice to have a positive thing said. Isn't that nice?
That's so kind. What intro to what movie?
To That Thing You Do. You don't remember. It was like 48 episodes ago.
But we talked about the intro of that movie. I don't remember the intro of that movie being particularly special.
No, I think they are saying, did we introduce the movie or did we just start talking about it? I'm guessing.
Well, okay. Well, either way, I'm happy that they're happy.
Yeah, you're
Thank you for
overanalyzing,
listening.
Gab.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see here. We also had a comment from that same person on Tropic Thunder that just that says, quote, shout out to Flag Day. So I think you said that.
I did. Yeah. And you know what? I stand by it. Shout out to Flag Day.
I'll take or leave Flag Day.
Flag Day hasn't hurt anybody, as far as I know.
Has it really benefited anyone?
Do
Although,
we get
you know
a
what?
day off?
I don't get the day off. Do you get the day off for Flag Day?
Dylan, I don't get the day off for anything.
Yeah, no. We need more like holidays that everybody gets the day off for. That's what we need.
Yeah. Like what?
Do you want me to make up a holiday right now?
No. I'm just saying, like, what holiday does everybody get off for? Christmas?
Well, yeah.
Shout out Christmas.
I guess.
All right, keep going.
How come we don't get 8 days off for Hanukkah? That's what I want to know.
Hanukkah doesn't even really matter in the grand scheme of things.
Even to Judaism, they were like, we need a reason to give some kids some gifts. We're gonna lose these kids.
They were like, we're losing them left and right. We got no presents.
All right, we do have a couple comments on our last episode. Don't tell Mom the babysitter's dead, from Scotty Cameron. So he is adding the time code 3919, which, of course, I do not remember what was said then.
He loves the receipts,
but he does. He always has the receipts. He's given me a small script here from Mocha Joe and Larry David. So, Mocha Joe, you know what, Larry? Get out. You're banned for life. I never want to see you in here again. Larry, is that so? Mocha, yes, you're banned. Banned. Get out. Larry, with pleasure. Mark my words, Mocha Joe, and mark them well. I don't know when, and I don't know where, but I will exact vengeance on you. As God is my witness, I will bring you to the brink of extinction or I will die trying. Happy New Year, Mocha Joe. Happy New Year, Larry. Richard Lewis, Happy New Year, man. Larry David, Happy New Year. Anytime something or someone is banned, my mind goes to that Larry David, Mocha Joe bit from Curb Your Enthusiasm. So I guess that's because we banned talk of Jack Ryan?
Oh, yes. That makes sense.
I feel like Scotty's comments are slowly becoming more of a mystery that I have to solve by the end of the comment now.
Yeah.
Do you still keep up with Curb Your Enthusiasm?
No. Oh, God, no. But I love it. But I mean, I don't think I've really sat down and watched it since I was like a freshman in college.
If you have Max, it is so worthwhile because it is still fucking hysterical.
Corey, have you ever, sorry, surprise, Corey's here. Have you ever seen Curb Your Enthusiasm? A couple episodes, nothing. Yeah, we should watch it. He did buy us each toothbrushes, though. So, listener, in case you were wondering, our oral hygiene is on the up and up.
I'm so glad to hear it. I was very concerned.
Yeah, thank you for the toothbrush, honey. Okay.
Gisela said that she has a hard time watching Curb Enthusiasm because she says it just reminds her of being around my family because everyone's yelling.
Oh my God, that is the truth. That is so true.
I hear it. I get it.
Yeah.
We have another comment from Scotty. Does Gab's brother shop at Entertain Mart, Vintage Stock, or Movies Trading Company for retro video games? Because that's the only place I can think of at the top of my head that sells both comic books and retro games. Which I think you had said maybe your brother had, maybe my cousin and your brother had a GameCube, but
yeah,
that would have been years ago anyway. That wouldn't be like a recent purchase.
No, he probably bought it during the pandemic, and he definitely bought it at like a local store. You know what I mean?
possible.
Like not online. Yeah. So Scotty, sorry to upset you, but whatever website you're talking about, he straight up just bought it at some like backwoods Long Island buy and trade game store.
I must also ask Dylan, did you and Zach have the game Seaman, which I'm having a hard time to say. The game Seaman on Dreamcast, narrated by the late Leonard Nimoy. I'm like, we had a different kind of Seaman in our house growing up. I'm so disappointed in myself that I could not make this stupid ass joke. And it actually uses that microphone piece on the Dreamcast controller, because that game is a treat. Literally the only game that I can remember from the Sega Dreamcast is a game that was called Toy Commander.
Yeah, I think that's the game you always wanted to play. It was like you were playing the little army guys from Toy Story, right?
I literally looked it up recently. You're not, like, you never play as an actual guy. You either play as a tank, a plane, or there was a third thing. And like each one has like somewhat of an advantage and like different perks. And you would just be fighting each other, and it would lead to either just us having a ton of fun or us beating the shit out of each other with rage.
Yes.
As all games did growing up.
Honestly, I was going to say most of our fun ended in us beating the shit out of each other.
Well, somebody's got to get beat up.
Yeah, it was usually you. Sorry.
It was usually me. I'm fine now, though.
Years of therapy.
Okay, let's get to some emails now. First, we got an email from Mark from. He's the one who I explained to you last time. Always leaves the comments that keep telling Gab she rules on the other podcast.
Yes, my favorite listener.
The bar is so low for Gab. She doesn't even want your Venmos anymore. She's like, just compliment her.
Just say it. You just say I'm great.
Another catch-up message. Yippee skip. Salutations, Dylan and Gab. I wanted to continue giving my thoughts on the movies you covered on the podcast that I have seen in order of when they were covered, so buckle up. The Birdcage. I know that the movie is a favorite of my mother's, and it's not hard to see why. Robin Williams and Nathan Lane are hilarious and have wonderful chemistry together. Hank Azaria as the housekeeper is always funny. The Elaine May script is sharp and witty, and the supporting performances from Gene Hackman and Diane Wiest are fun.
So fun.
I wish that Robin Williams' son had a bit more to do, particularly towards the end, seeing as the crux of the story revolves around him and Callista Flocker getting married. Aside from that, though, this one still holds up for me personally.
Agreed.
Batman Mask of the Phantasm. 10 out of 10 masterpiece, one of the best comic book films ever made, 75 minutes of perfection, and I know Dylan will agree. He's right, he knows. Can't wait to get the 4K Ultra HD release this fall. Die Hard. Another masterpiece. Everything about this film works from top to bottom. Not much more to say about it that hasn't already been said. Tropic Thunder, one of my favorite comedies, fantastic all around. The tone deafness of RDJ's character in blackface definitely was on purpose. It's biting satire that I think is even more effective now than in 2008. National Lampoon's Vacation. Absolutely deserve its status as a comedy classic. I prefer Christmas Vacation myself, but this still works overall. Rest in peace, John Hughes and Harold Ramis. I feel like ever since we talked about Vacation, every single person is like, Vacation's great, Christmas Vacation's better. And I'm like,
it's true. We're going to do that when the holidays roll around, which honestly is not too far from now, unfortunately.
I'm like, oh, yay.
Yeah. I know, I'm already dreading it.
You've got mail. In terms of Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan, Nora Ephron joints, I probably prefer Sleepless in Seattle more than this, but it still works overall. Interesting. Wow. I disagree. The Mummy, still a fun ride of a movie. I don't really go for the sequels, though. And lastly, for this week, True Lies. I was going to say for this week, that was like 6 months ago. This and T2 are my favorite James Cameron films. No one can direct Arnold Schwarzenegger better than he can, and I think this was Arnold's best performance, and his chemistry with Jamie Lee Curtis is electric. The slick writing, action set pieces, and effects work just as well now as it did then. It's a dynamite movie that is long overdue for a Blu-ray release. I think I mentioned, you know why that movie hasn't had a Blu-ray release, right?
No.
Because James Cameron is too busy making Avatar movies to oversee it getting a Blu-ray release and agree to it.
What would he have to agree to?
I don't know. Like, I did not think that he has to do a lot of personal work, but he's just like, I can't specifically make sure of that, so I will not allow it.
But also, who uses Blu-ray anymore?
God damn it, Gav. Physical media is important.
Yeah, but DVDs, I feel like we tried the Blu-ray thing and we just all were like, nope, DVDs for life.
Oh, Gab, this shows me how out of the physical media game you are. DVDs are mostly dead. Everything that comes out now comes out as a Blu-ray or 4K Ultra HD.
Which is a DVD, no?
No, DVD is, if you go in order of the quality of the picture, DVD is the lowest quality picture. I believe it's actually 480 pixels. Blu-ray is 1080p, and 4K is obviously 4K.
Okay.
Might be wrong on
I
that.
have to be honest.
You don't
I
care. I'm aware. I could tell from your face, Gab.
Okay. I just want to make sure we're clear.
It looked like you were off in a distant land thinking of other things.
Oh, I was.
Anywho, that's long enough. I'll remember to send another email next week. Until then, Dylan, always tell Gab that she rules because she does, and I'll catch you on the Batwagon. Your pal, Mark.
That's very kind.
He knows what he's doing. He knows to fluff up the hosts.
Working.
We got an email from Scotty here on Shutter Island or Scorsese's attempt at a Nolan movie.
Oh.
Did you see Oppenheimer yet, speaking of Nolan movies?
No, I haven't. Should I?
I've now seen it twice, and you know what? It's very good.
Twice?
Grandma wanted to see it, and I got roped into another 3-hour movie. I was like, oh, no.
Did Giselle go with you twice?
Nope.
Oh, it's just you and
She went
Grandma?
the first time.
Wow.
Yeah, you know what? That was a long movie for Grandma. She did not make it the entire time without going to the bathroom.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, did Grandma make it?
I will say, growing up, I saw every Lord of the Rings movie with her, and neither one of us ever, I don't think we ever finished one of those movies without having a piss.
Yeah. It's all right. A lot of Diet Coke.
As Scotty was saying, correct. Hey, Dylan and Gab, Shutter Island is absolutely a movie to watch before you die, and I hope you both will agree on that in your verdicts. There's an old meme going around on the internet that it was Martin Scorsese's attempt at a Christopher Nolan movie, and I can see where it comes from. It does have everything, not as it seems, like many Christopher Nolan movies have, particularly Memento and Inception. You ever see Memento? No?
No, but I've seen Inception.
I think Inception's overrated as fuck. Memento, I do love.
I didn't enjoy it. I have to give it a shot.
That's part of why I like the movie so much, because I just love Nolan's formula, and when another director can successfully recreate it, I find it interesting. Just The Machinist, which is another movie that you could fool me into thinking was a Nolan movie. I'm confused by the grammar there, but that's fine. Just gonna keep going. I just love the revelation that Teddy Daniels was Andrew Latis, love Ben Kingsley, Leo DiCaprio, and Mark Ruffalo in this movie. I don't know how involved George Takei actually uses his social media accounts. He's doing his Jamie duties now. Given that he posts videos of himself, I do believe he actually posts some things through his accounts. However, his accounts post a lot of memes, which does not strike me as something an 86-year-old man would be into. Oh, I did get a chance to meet George Takei at a local Comic-Con when he entered the hall for his event. The entire crowd chanted, "Oh my," as he walked on the stage. That was Sulu's catchphrase in Star Trek. Yeah, I knew about Sinead O'Connor's passing. It's sad. I know of her because of the song Black Boys on Mopeds. The band Chevelle released a cover of that song on their sophomore album, Wonder What's Next.
What?
Yeah, I was confused by a lot of that sentence too. The only song I've ever heard of by Sinead O'Connor is that "Nothing Compares to You,"
which I think either Prince wrote or was a Prince song originally, or Prince wrote and then she sang and then he was like, I'm gonna do it better.
I don't know. I don't know enough about it. All I know is that she tore up that picture of the Pope on SNL, and it was like, yeah, you know what? She was right on that.
Yeah.
History has kind of proven her right.
But at what cost?
Well, at the cost of like her mainstream career, it seems.
Yeah.
Oh, good. I get to say the title again. I had initially thought Black Boys on Mopeds was a Chevelle song until I found Sinead's version of the song and noticed it was released before 2002, the year Chevelle released their sophomore album. Both versions of the song are great. Oh no, how you brought this back, Scotty. Requiescat in Pace and Sinead O'Connor. I forgot. That was so long ago.
Oh, Dylan's Italian is still bad.
I think that's Latin, isn't it?
Who cares?
That's all, folks. And in case I don't see you again, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Scotty. We got one more email, a quickie, from the one and only Key Machine.
Aw.
R.E. Don't Tell Mom. Greetings, Gab and Dylan. Sorry I didn't send a message in last week. Great show as always. Once again, another film I've literally never heard of, let alone seen.
Wow.
I really don't have much to say this time, so instead I'll opt for a joke. Why does Where's Waldo always wear stripes?
Why?
Because he doesn't want to be spotted.
Oh boy, that's the best he's got.
At least it doesn't fall upon me. My delivery was phenomenal. There's no denying that.
Is that the end?
Okay, so I do want to bring up one thing about Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead quickly before we go back. I've mentioned before many times on this podcast that my mother will never listen to this. She will not figure out how to. She does not know what a Spotify is. There's just no way. So
Why do I feel like this
when
ends with her having listened to it?
well, when you make the little preview clips, I sent them all to her and I was like, here, listen, you can like hear little bits and pieces from our podcast. And she responded to the Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead one. And she said, when did you fall off the bed? And I was like, in kindergarten. Like, what do you mean? And she goes, was I there in the room when it happened? And I was like, yes. And she goes, I don't think this happened. And I was like, ask dad, like play it for dad. And she played it for my dad. And my dad was like, yes, absolutely. She smashed her tailbone on the floor. My mom was like, no, I don't think so.
So she has just blocked this out, it seems.
She's just decided, she was like, I would never let that happen. And I was like, really? Because you did.
I feel like she told herself parentally, not a good look that I was in the room watching you hippity hop on the bed. Gonna say that didn't happen.
Yep. I mean, it's like, it's amazing what we can convince ourselves. So
well,
there's
I'm
a
glad
Shutter
that the
Island
truth has
crossover
come
for
out.
you. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks to my dad, who is willing to be like, yep, absolutely. We were paying zero attention and she almost died.
He is now actively fighting with your mom about this, but it was worth it.
Absolutely. So that's all I got for you.
Now, can we get back to the verdicts on Shutter Island?
Let's get back to it.
Do or do not. There is no try.
The guilty will be punished.
Sentence is death.
Gab, being your movie, take it away.
Dylan, I watched this movie once before my rewatching for this podcast. I remembered how much I loved it. I didn't quite remember the details. I just remembered that the movie ended with a brilliant twist. And upon rewatch 13 years later, I was not disappointed. It is a great movie. It keeps you on the edge of your seat. It is quite macabre, but in a way that I truly enjoy. The acting is phenomenal. The performances are great. The direction is amazing. It's visually pleasing. I think it is 1000% a movie to watch before you die.
I will say, Gab, it's definitely longer than it should be. Leonardo DiCaprio is definitely not giving me all the Boston accent that I wanted. But it is a movie that really, it's worth watching twice because it rewards you on the first watch when you don't see the twist coming, and it really rewards you on the second watch when you're looking for all the clues of what would end up being the twist. I definitely think it's a movie to watch before you die. I remember loving it when I saw it in high school, and I guess I had mostly forgotten about it, but having rewatched this movie yesterday, I was like, fuck, that's a good fucking movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was like, I said it just so I went, you gotta watch this movie. You're gonna watch this with me. And like she was like,
It's so
okay.
good.
I was like, you're gonna watch it.
It's so good. And, you know, it's funny because I feel like when I mentioned it to you, like to me, it was like I was like teeing up for a, you know, a home run. And you were kind of like, oh, okay. And I was like, oh my God, am I misremembering what a great movie this is? But I think you misremembered.
I think if anything, it's also, I remember you mentioning the movie. I think you were like, a movie that Dylan has never seen. And I was like, yes, I have.
Oh yeah. I really thought you hadn't seen it. But yeah, this was an easy one. I do think it's one of those movies that, you know, because it's Martin Scorsese and he does have such an incredible repertoire of films that like often gets kind of lost because it wasn't an Academy Award winner. Like, but it is just a great watch top to bottom.
Yeah, clearly a not respected enough work of Scorsese's, I feel like.
Yeah.
So Gab, now that we've gone through our verdicts and before we get through our wrapping up and goodbye, I do have a pick for next week.
What is it?
I'm going to involve you in the pick. So at the time of recording this, we have Barbie and Oppenheimer coming out. Each one of these options I have has an actor from one of these two movies.
I'm going to see Barbie on Friday.
You're going to see Barbie on Friday. So do you want to pick the comedy or do you want to pick the horror movie?
Comedy.
Next week, we will be reviewing The Nice Guys, starring Ryan Gosling and, oh my God, what's his name? Russell Crowe.
Okay, well, I love Ryan Gosling, so I'm excited.
I think it's the movie that made me love Ryan Gosling. So we'll get into that more next week. But right now, what we should do is thank the people who send in mail every week. So thanks, Keen, and thanks, Mark, and thanks, My Fat Face, and thanks, Everybody else, Scotty.
Scotty Cameron? Jesus Christ.
Scotty knows. We mention Scotty every second of this podcast. Scotty, I think about you before I go to bed. I think about when I wake up.
That
Scotty
was
knows
the
he's in my
equivalent
heart.
of us not giving Leonardo DiCaprio an Oscar because we're like, he knows he's good.
Let's give Scotty all his flowers right now. Scotty, you get the podcast Oscar.
Yes. Great job, Scotty. Yes. Thank you to everybody who listens. Thank you for everybody who writes in. Thank you to Leonardo DiCaprio. Thank you to Ryan Gosling. Thank you to,
Okay, solid wrap up there. If you want to find us at more places, in the description below I just made a link tree. So that actually links to all the places that you can find us.
Very exciting.
So if you're watching us on YouTube and you're like, I hate YouTube, I wish you were on Google Podcasts. I don't know why you'd say that so angrily, but yes, we're on Google Podcasts.
And Spotify. You can write us an email at movies2watchbeforeyouDie@gmail.com. You can send us a voice note at Anchor FM/movies to watch. And of course, you can Venmo me at Gab6492. I'm just putting it out there.
It's also in the link tree if you want to Venmo
I know, that's
Gab.
why I felt comfortable saying it. I mean,
It's
you're not
in
going
there.
to find me, right?
I hope not.
Yeah. All right. This has been great. Dylan, the movie that really made me love Ryan Gosling was Crazy Stupid Love. I just want you to know that.
I did really like that movie, like the first time I saw it, and I feel like when I watch it now, I'm like, it's not as good as I remember it being, but it's good. It's fun.
1,000%. I rewatched it maybe like 6 months ago, and I was like, oh, this isn't as good as I remember.
Yeah, and there's like stuff that's like, oh, that's a little gross, but like it's good.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah.
All
right.
Yeah, and the twist ending is you guys made the podcast the whole time. There is no Dylan and Gab. It was you. This podcast was hosted by Scotty.
Yep. Bye.
I had a friend. I was with him yesterday, but we got separated. Have you seen him?
Marshall, you have no friends.
What a loser.